Drew Murray here from D20 Advice, and I am here to talk to you about different role-playing games. So, my sister-in-law is going to be running soon a game called Puppetland, and this game intrigues me. It is Diceless role-playing. Now, Diceless role-playing is something that some of you may have come across before. In some iterations of Savage Worlds, for instance Deadlands, they use cards instead of dice to determine outcomes of things. You only roll dice for things like damage, and even then, sometimes you don't. So there are examples of Diceless role-playing that some people may have come across, but Puppetland is different. It's pure Diceless role-playing. You create characters in similar ways to other systems, in that you pick from a list of archetypes and you get the option of customizing it slightly. I'm not going to go into the details of that. I would like you to go and seek out Puppetland and find that out for yourself. What I am going to share with you just now, however, is the fact that the gameplay is done in a joint narrative style. So a player, rather than being able to separate themselves from their character and declare, my character will do this, all gameplay is handled in character. So while you're sat at the table, you must speak in character. With the game being called Puppetland, you might guess that you are all puppets, in a literal sense. You can be a shadow puppet, a marionette, a hand puppet, or a finger puppet. Those are the four main types of puppet that you can be. And they all have various benefits and detriments. When you're performing in this game, you say, I'm going to go and do this, and hope that it will achieve this end. And that is you communicating with the other players and with the games master, who I think in this game is called the Puppet Master, and you have it then resolved by this Puppet Master, this games master, and that is it. The games master simply decides on how it resolves. So if you say, I'm going to pick up this rock and hurl it at the door and hope the door gets bashed in so we can all escape, that's you as the puppet saying it out loud like you would in a puppet show, declaring your intentions. And so the games master will then let you know whether or not the rock turns out to be a Geodude from Pokemon or whatever, or it turns out to be ice cream disguised as a rock, and oh no, you've now got sticky fingers. Or if the rock does hurl but bounces off the door, or if it gets hurled and slams through the door and the door is now open and you can now escape. It's all decided by the games master, and that's an interesting way to play. There are other unique things about this game, such as gameplay taking place within an hour slot. It has to be an hour, no more, no less. And this whole constantly speaking in character, you cannot ask a question or do anything else while sat at the table. You're allowed to stand up and then say things outside of the game, but while you're playing, sat at the table, there is no meta game. Or rather, the whole game is a meta game because you're using like first-person dialogue to communicate the intentions of the character rather than what the character actually does, which can take some getting used to. I can imagine this being a difficult game to play. But I wanted to take this opportunity to share this game with you. It's an interesting game. It's one that I hope to enjoy. And so good luck, Meg, with running the game. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm pretty jazzed. But I love finding out new game systems and new ways to play things. It got me thinking more about other Diceless role-playing systems and the fact that you can use cards and things. This all got me thinking about the one-line RPG that was spoken about before, where you simply have a description of a character and you gather a whole bunch of D6 based on what you've got. And the whether you succeed or fail is basically whether you roll 1 to 3 or 4 to 6. So looking at that and thinking about that, I started thinking about a different way that you could do things. And so, as my brain does, I started coming up with a new thing. Or rather, it's new to me. If this is something that already exists in some form, please, someone, for the love of God, point it out to me, because I want to explore this idea more. And I don't have the time right now to go into making a whole new game system. Even though it's a simple one. Using a deck of cards to determine everything in a preset way. And so the premise, the setup for this kind of game would be that the fates have preordained everything. And so you shuffle a deck of cards. Now it could be a standard deck of cards, or it could simply be pass, fail, pass but with something bad, or fail but with something good cards. And they could simply be like green for something good, red for something bad, and you could have green cards and red cards with a blue sticker on it or something to say this is the one with the caveat, so it's good but, or it's bad but, and shuffle them all up. So you've got a deck of cards, and this deck of cards is set. You would know as a person that everything in that deck is now set the way that it is. And so the premise is that fate is already predetermined. It's already determined that there is a failure 4 cards down. And so the characters of the game would have various abilities that play with this and would allow you to look at the deck. Pick the top 2 or 3 cards from the deck and see them, not rearrange them though. And you might have a super powerful ability if you're like a sorceress type character or something, where you could shuffle the deck. You could rearrange fate entirely. Or a special ability where you can ignore one card and draw the next, but you have to stick with what the next one is, even if it's worse. So that's a game system that I would like to explore somehow. Or to find out that it already exists, this fate system. I think there is already a role-playing game system called Fate, but I think it's an acronym, then it stands for something else. But yes, I want to explore this idea more. This really excites me, this idea of having a meta game that plays into the narrative of the game. So the gameplay mechanics of this set deck very much plays into the game itself, the story of the fact that there is fate and things can be predetermined. You could easily slot this into a D20 style game, something Wizards of the Coasty. You could replace all D20 rolls with this card system, this fate system, and have the characters have some awareness of this, that fate is already preset. Have it in a sort of traditional Grecian setting and have the fates actual characters that can be bargained with in some way. Have them similar to warlock patrons, perhaps. Have them be warlock patrons. Create your own warlock patron that deals directly with the fates. The fates are your patron, and your special abilities are things like being able to shuffle the deck of fate. You're the only one that has this sort of connection with it. Wild magic. You could change some wild magic surges so that they have some impact on this fate deck as well. So you've got people working with the fates, for the fates, being able to manipulate fate to suit them. And then you've got these sorcerers that are just born with fate-bending powers. And everyone else just has to abide by this law of the universe, the fact that destiny is preset for them. That, I think, would make for a very, very interesting campaign. And it's something that I look forward to trying out in the future. But I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you guys think that this card system of setting a preordained set of results, that the next card drawn is definitely a success or definitely a failure, do you like this idea? Should it be a single deck for the entire play group, including the game master? Or should it be a separate deck for each person? And maybe it could be a deck of only about 10 cards or so, but you could still shuffle and rearrange it. And with the warlock with the fates as their patron, they could affect other people's decks, perhaps. Maybe the games master doesn't have a deck and he sticks to dice rolls. Maybe the fates don't apply to him, not in the same way. I'd like to know your thoughts. I'd like to know if I'm on the right track, if this is an idea worth developing and pursuing. Is this something that already exists somewhere? And if so, can you point it out to me, please? And on top of that, Puppetland. Do you guys think that that sounds like a cool game idea? This entirely diceless, cardless, random resultless game system that's entirely narrative driven. I like the sound of that. It seems to me like it occupies both the super grown up, we've been role playing for years, we've got this space, but simultaneously the we've never played role playing games before, perhaps we're still quite young, and the whole dice mechanics thing confuses us or scares us a little bit. We'd like to try something simpler. It's a weird game system that to me feels like it occupies both these camps. It is simultaneously a game for experts and for new people. It can serve as an on-ramp to the wider world of role-playing games, or it could serve as a nice release valve for people that have been so caught up in mechanics-based role-playing games for so long that this purely narrative-driven game with a group of their friends would be a fantastic change of pace. And these are my thoughts. Yeah, let me know what you think. Or don't. I'm not making you do out. Oh. It's a very Yorkshire thing to say. It means anything, by the way, for those that don't know. Oat is anything. And you don't even need to pronounce the T. You can go oat and have a suspensive pause at the end. That means anything. Anything. Oh. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how it devolves into that. Can I get you all? Can I get you anything? I don't know. English is weird. Yorkshire is weirder. I'm sure Yorkshire people would contend that that's not quite the case, but come on. You say sen when you mean self. Like, you're not even trying to just corrupt the sounds at the end of words. You're now just tacking on whole different consonants. Anyway, this is devolving into something else. Bye.